So this is kind of the eye candy show here. All right, I think Oleg put us first, so just so we could show you a bunch of fancy stuff. And don't believe everything you see.
What?
Some is there, some's not. All right, so I'm Dan Clarizio. I've been working on this project since almost the beginning with a couple other people. And Eric Winchell as well has been here since the beginning. I'm currently the manager of the user interface group. I think we have a team of over 15 now working on the UI specifically. We also get a lot of help from other teams. Eric, want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Eric Winchell. I started with ManageIQ in 2006, and I'm a software engineer on the UI team with Dan.
All right, we're also going to have some special guest speakers. We have Serena Doyle from the user experience team. We've been working really closely with their team, and you'll see that along the way. And then we have Roman Blanco, who's on my team, an engineer on my team, who's done some work, and he's going to demonstrate that at the end. So let's get going here. All right, so first we're going to talk about the improvements we've made over probably the last 2 releases. When we were brought into Red Hat, when ManageIQ became open sourced, there was a lot of improvements that we needed to make. I mean, we had proprietary software. We had libraries that were out of not being maintained anymore. So we had a lot of things that we had to replace, as well as obviously the project is growing. So in order to do that, we've got a lot of refactoring to do and things like that. And my whole team is aware of all these things, but we're hitting them as we can, and we've hit a lot of them along the way. Then we'll talk about the future improvements, the things that coming right up, as well as some of the concepts for even further out, and a couple demos, as I mentioned, Serena and Roman, and then we can have a discussion. Oh, did I go too far? I missed one. Oh boy, we got technical difficulties everywhere. Okay, all right. So I'm going to talk about the DHTLMX component replacements. That was a library that we were using. Mainly, I'm going to talk about it because Eric can't say DHTLMX.
Thank you.
I'm pretty good at it, I think. So we've replaced a lot of things, and actually we've eliminated DHTLMX from the product or from the project as well. There's some other libraries we've gotten rid of. Really just more to move forward into more modern technology, things that aren't being maintained, things that require plugins, stuff like that. And then other enhancements. And so let's see, let's go forward here. Okay, so DHTLMX
See?
toolbar. Yeah. These are quick. I'm just going to go through them really quick. So you can just see the replacements with the patternfly. Components, okay, so we're all in with patternfly, so the UX team is basically promoting the patternfly project, so we're all in with them. They seem to be all in with us, so when we need things, they respond, and vice versa. So, here's where we had the grids before, and not too much functionality difference here, but you can see they do look nicer, and the nice part about patternfly is that all of the components, they're designing them to match. So
We might mention that one of the features about DHTMLX that our customers did like was the resizable columns, and we'll be discussing that on a slide.
Yeah,
in a little while.
So we had accordions before. Now we have panels. There were some issues with it initially, but again, we worked with their team and we got all ironed out. So now they're really nice. The date picker. Now I tend to like the one on the left better a little bit. Only because it shows the weekends, but we'll work with you guys. I mean, I think, yeah, it's kind of nice, right? So, combo boxes. This is one of the more fancier drop-down things where you can have either check boxes or images in there, and it's special because in normal HTML you got a regular drop box that you can't do any of that stuff. Whereas with the DHTLMX as well as the new patternflies, you can do those kinds of things, so it looks a lot nicer.
And we'll be adding live search in a future release.
Yep. So once we get our product more browser-oriented with Angular and things, then live search will make a lot more sense because we'll be able to do that stuff all locally. So. All right, so this is actually where we were going with replacing DHTLMX. This was the hardest part to replace. So we had layouts, and you can see on the top left there, they called them cells. So we had a top cell and a bottom cell, and then the bottom cell had to be split into a left and a right cell, and you could keep going with that with DHTLMX. You could layer things together. And I mean, customers really liked it because you're able to, depending on their data, like if their names were short, they could slide the thing to the left and they could have a lot more room for the right-hand side and show more data. But if they had like crazy naming scheme where their names were like, 40, 50 characters long, they could move it over to the right and have more room on that left-hand cell to show their data. So we didn't want to lose that, but we wanted to go with something a little bit more responsive, easier to use, and obviously using the latest components. So what we've done is gone to the patternfly mode where we're actually, or the Bootstrap grid system mode, where we're actually, you can define number of columns, and then you can split your screen based on columns, right? I think, does the next slide have the?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll let you
So
describe it.
so one of the features our customers liked about DHTMLX was the splitter bar, which of course wasn't responsive, but it was based on pixels. So in some cases, the trees had very long object names, and they wrapped, and it would have been very difficult. So the splitter bar was handy, and we could not find an equivalent in Bootstrap. So we came up with the idea of the resizer. Using the two little arrows at the bottom, the resizer recalculates the columns on either side of the resizer. And there's 5 positions from 0, totally collapsed, to 5, which is about 40% of the screen. And that work, the back-end work, was done by David from our group. By the way, I think this is probably a very useful tool for anybody using patternfly.
We're past DHTML.
Okay, this was a simple replacement of jQuery UI tabs to patternfly tabs. We just replaced slick grids, which was a component that mimicked a tree inside a table. Now we're using the patternfly tree grid table, which allows us to do the same thing. This is used in the compare and drift screens as well as our import and export screens. We have just replaced our Zia Flash charts upstream with patternfly C3 charts. In Darga, they use patternfly styling. In the yet-to-be-named release, we will be using Angular chart derivatives. Since the last conference, we introduced a new patternfly login screen, which uses a solid background and corner PNG files that don't stretch. So the graphics are always crisp at any resolution. But we've maintained the legacy login screen, which is a PNG file that is stretched, and we find this is pretty popular. And this can be set in the settings area, in server settings. Our custom pop-ups have been replaced with patternfly modals. Our custom file upload has been replaced with Bootstrap file style, which is just an attractive way of formatting file fields and forms, and it's browser agnostic. We always had trouble getting the buttons to line up in various browsers. Checkboxes have been, in some cases, replaced with the Bootstrap Switch. It works for both radio buttons and checkboxes, and it's optimal for touch-based devices. It's also pretty cool. So we found this component, brought it to the patternfly team. They evaluated it and incorporated it into patternfly. The main dashboard widgets have been updated with patternfly cards, and the buttons along the top have been replaced with the ellipses, or the kebab, as we call it in patternfly, with the action buttons in the drop-down.
What was that fancy reason you said before? To reduce?
Visual noise.
Visual noise. Reduce visual noise. All right, I'll talk about this one. Okay.
And they're going to be covering this in the next one. Yeah.
So the container group has been really moving fast with adding a lot of fancy stuff. Let's call it, especially this topology widget. They also have put a lot of the patternfly cards and graphs and stuff onto their dashboards, which we'll see later. So I'm not going to steal any of their thunder here, but this is really, you're going to hopefully see this in the next presentation. But really a visual representation of all the relationships. Currently, it is in containers, and it's destined for a lot of other areas in the product. We're going to try to wrangle it down a little bit. Sometimes you get in here and it kind of has a lot to take in one shot. But we have a shot later, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I keep going here. So what we've been doing with our forms is we've been changing from the Rails, the RJS style of actually kind of sending transactions all the time where people are hitting buttons and typing and things like that, and pushing it down into Angular so that the browser side can do all that work. All right, so you see we can have real-time validations. We can have the buttons turning on and off when they need to, all without talking to the server at all. Okay, so it reduces a lot of the performance issues we had, a lot of the traffic that goes to the server. Every time the server, gets a transaction, he's got to start up the whole session object and everything. So it really does reduce a lot of that, or improve a lot of that performance. But it also looks really nice. I mean, you can tell what you have to enter. You can tell, when your form is done, things like that.
So when we last met here 18 months ago, all of the images in the UI were PNG files. And since that time, the patternfly group has been actively generating icons to be used for all patternfly projects. And so we have been converting toolbar PNG files, list view PNG files. Actually, any place that we can use a monochrome image, we've been using font icons, using the patternfly library, the font awesome, or in some cases for icons that are very specific for ManageIQ, we've created our own library called Product. They're vector-based, so they're razor sharp at any resolution, and they're very small files. But those are monochrome. They can be colored a single color. Now that we've deprecated IE8 and IE9, we've started incorporating SVG files where we need to use multicolor files. And we started out with vendor and OS icons. Our goal is to completely eliminate PNG files in the UI and use a mix of font icons and SVGs where appropriate. As of last night, we had about 800 PNG files left in the UI, and our goal is to get that to 0. It's going to be an undertaking. There's a lot of back-end work, as well as the replacement of Fancy Tree with Bootstrap Tree, but we'll get to that. Vertical navigation with tertiary was just introduced. It's a reorganized menu hierarchy. Do you want to touch that?
Yeah, and we were running out of space horizontally. Then everyone knows. Okay, so as we keep adding more products and more providers, it just kept filling up. And so we worked with the UX team as well on this, and decided to go with the vertical navigation on the left. So in addition to that, though, we didn't want to blow out of space going down as well. So we've worked with some teams and came up with adding some higher level nodes, compute, network, storage, middleware, I think is coming, things like that, to regroup, okay, and fit these pieces in. Okay. Some of the cool things are, though, that you can actually, at the second and third levels, you can actually pin those back. So if you spend a lot of your time in infrastructure, or all your time in infrastructure, you can just go to infrastructure and you just hit a little pin button, and all those menus slide back. So now you can just play around in infrastructure as though it's a primary menu. So we've done some things. I mean, no matter what menu system you end up with, you're going to have some kind of issues, so it's a trade. It's always a trade-off, so UI is always a trade-off. So we think this is a great solution. If you've been having issues with some of the timings and things like that where it feels a little weird, we've been tweaking those. So check out the latest release candidates. Okay, so hopefully by the final release candidate, this thing will be really smooth. I mean, lately it's really nice now.
So for the last few years, we've had a minimum viewport browser resolution of 1280 pixels. With this change, virtually all of our screens are fine on mobile, tablet, or desktop.
Okay, and this is another addition by the container group working again with UX, and we're targeting for this to move across the product as well. So this is a dashboard screen for one of their providers. It uses all of the heat maps and the cards and charts that they have. Now a lot of this data though is being generated, dynamically, right at real time, I guess you could call it. Whereas if you're familiar with our dashboard charts, they generate asynchronously, so that when they come up, they pop right up. So as this loads and gets in some kind of high volume situations, it may have some performance issues, right? So anyway. This is out there and ready to go, but what we want to do then is combine the two technologies so that you have an option, so you can make things either real-time or async. you know, put these kind of widgets on your dashboard, put our other kind of widgets back on these dashboards. So we have a project to move forward to combine this together and make it all run kind of the same way where the user can configure this stuff.
All right, future improvements and conceptual designs. Okay, so one of the first things we want to do now that we have the new navigation is to move settings to the header.
For Oleg.
This is for Oleg, yes. And this is the chief obstacle to our conversion from PNGs to vector images. So we're going to be replacing Dynatree with Bootstrap Tree, which will also bring in patternfly styling automatically.
Yeah, and Dynatree's been kind of dropped, I think. It's actually an old version, and the new version's renamed, and yeah, we don't want to follow that path.
Yeah. Another new widget in patternfly is the time picker, so we'll be replacing our form drop-downs with that in the near future. This is a screenshot we actually showed at the summit, showed here 2 years ago. This is our current dashboard layout, which is 3 columns. The widgets are ordered and stored in the database. With the new navigation, they are responsive in that they will drop from 3 to 2 to 1 column. But the patternfly team is now researching editable dashboards, so this will be completely changing. We'll have drag and drop and multiple shapes, but stay tuned. And yeah.
Okay, so yeah, here's where we're kind of going with the topology, trying to get it into the other areas of the product. This is like a mock-up of say a VM screen. And so you can see a lot simpler at this point. We kind of just want to go out like one level and kind of let you navigate with this. Whereas you used to kind of go to that relationships tab, you know, and you'd kind of chase those relationships. Now you should be able to chase them through here. Well, not now. Okay, in the future, you'll be able to chase them through here.
Don't believe everything.
But we're still working on how to make this actually, you know, work and like maybe configurable. Maybe you want to go 2 levels out on some of these nodes, you know, things like that. So again, stay tuned, right?
This is another concept we introduced at the last
Right. We
meeting
introduced this last time. I don't think we had the groupings, did we? Or is this exactly?
No, we had the groupings. Yeah.
And then with Serena's team, they've got heat maps as well. And so, well, the main concept we have here is if we were to sort by something, say the region, right? You could take your heat maps. And then you can look at it and say, oh, in North America, I've got this many down, but oh, look at EMEA, man. No, that's got a lot of machines down, right? Or you could sort by a tag, right? I go, well, look at my production versus my dev or my pre-QA and things like that. So you could take these, and our reporting system would fully support this, already does, and just drop them into these heat maps and kind of look at it the way you want to see it and get some really nice views into your data. Yeah, pretty slick.
Patternfly team is looking at restyling our quad icons to give them a flatter design.
I don't know if you want to vote on this now or no. No. Okay. No.
Table view with configurable columns. Do you want to address this?
Oh, well, yeah. This is what we used to call list view. So we're gonna have to go through our terminology here because list view is table view. Our grid was I don't know.
Our list view in ManageIQ is called table view in Patternfly. So we're going to refer to this as table view from now on.
Right. So obviously we're going to try to get to this point, and but this is what you were talking about before, right? We need to add a few extra features to it.
Yep.
Yeah. So especially the resize column.
Hide, show, hide, show, reorder. Save per table.
Yeah, hide, show, reorder, and all those things. We're currently looking at the designs of that because, I mean, it's easy to say I'd like to be able to hide and show, but does that mean each individual user wants to be able to hide and show? Does the administrator want to be able to? Do you want some users not be able to hide and show field? Do you want to be able to show every column that we have, or just a set? You know, for this, you know, should the administrator be able to configure that set? So anyway. We're looking at this, and we just need the features into the tools first, and then we'll figure out how we're going to.
And Patternfly is working on resizable columns right now. So that's a feature we had before with DHTMLX, and we'll be bringing it back. List view, we currently have this in the self-service UI. We're looking to bring it in as an alternate view to the table view. It's got a minimalist design. It allows for action buttons and action menus, and simple and compound expansions.
Okay, so this is where we're actually going with the object level dashboards because we want to get to where the container group is, you know, and have that, but we want to merge them together with ours, okay, and make them configurable. But the point here is that, you know, you get to an object, a VM, or any object basically, and you can switch to that dashboard view. I mean, you could drive around in dashboard view. Oh, that's pretty funny. You drive around with a dashboard.
Not that funny.
Not that funny. I thought it was funny when I said it. So, all right. Think of an executive, Matt, right? He wants to come in and he wants to see this. So he doesn't want to see all this, you know, these lines of rows of data. He wants to see, you know, fancy charts. So, anyway, we're going there.
So the patternfly toolbar, we did do a replacement of the DHTMLX toolbar with patternfly, but we really use it for action buttons and view buttons. The toolbar was designed for filtering, sorting, and searching. So we'll be looking to move those features into the toolbar in the near future. This exists currently in the SSUI. And we're going to turn it over to Serena.
All right. Here you go.
Okay.
You weren't ready.
No, I wasn't ready before we came up. Okay, hi, my name is Serena Doyle. I work in the UXD group in Red Hat, and we have a team of 3 designers that are currently working with ManageIQ, as well as 2 developers doing front-end work. So this is a concept that we're talking about replacing the current timeline view. It's a D3-based component. It's a replacement for the current timeline view, obviously, and it supports both SVG and fonts inside here. It's actually in the time frame of this month. At the end of this month, we're going to be doing some usability testing. So we're going to be usability testing the readability, the interaction as well of this view. So we also have are looking into ways to zoom. So right now, the component itself has some interaction that is based on interacting directly with the chart itself. But we're also talking about trying to figure out if there's any common keystrokes or other controls that we can have on the right-hand side to say, zoom back to the regular zoom state, go into 7 days, let me see the last month, that kind of thing. We're also trying to figure out if you are interactively zooming with the chart, if you should be zooming like on the top using a brush to zoom by interacting directly on the chart, or have a viewport on the bottom that allows you to interact with the viewport where you see spikes or low spots, and then it will change the time frame automatically. The next thing is the new patternfly chart type. So as Dan and Eric had mentioned, patternfly uses C3 and D3 charts. We had originally styled them for patternfly styling, and as they mentioned, we are also creating some new card types. And those card types are things that we actually started with on the container level dashboard. So we have things like utilization trend cart, utilization bars, and utilization trend cards. Essentially, where you're seeing the colored, the donut chart as well as the bar charts, what we do is we have threshold values. So the charts will start at green when they're under a threshold. Once they get to, right now they're set to a 75% threshold as your warning, they turn orange. And once they get to a 90% threshold, they turn red. That's all underneath is all configurable, so as we go forward, we can allow the users to determine what they want their threshold values to be. The about modal, this is just a consistency thing that we're trying to bring in, a common place that you can find out what release you're running. You know, all the information as far as browser that you're using, that type of thing. It will be located in the same place if you're running self-service or the traditional UI, and you'll be able to find your information easily. So if you want to, if you're having issues with your release and people don't, and your customers don't know necessarily what version they're running, it's an easy way for them to determine that. Oh, and I also didn't mention that uses the same branding as that's on the login screen. So hypothetically, again, if you're rebranding your UI, it should be pulled into here as well. The next thing, we actually already have started working on this in Patternfly Wizards, and I think the container team will be using the wizards. We actually built it specifically for their use case. What we will be doing going forward is trying to replace all of the tab dialogues that are currently inside of ManageIQ with wizard-based things. So it's useful when the user needs to go through a set of sequential steps, but sometimes when you have a tab dialogue, they're not necessarily sure what order they need to go in. The nice thing about this is we're allowing interactions directly with the step panel itself on the top. So you can either use the buttons on the bottom to go next and back, or you can actually select the buttons on the top if you'd like to. The next thing that we have to look into this from a patternfly perspective is responsiveness, because right now it's not designed to be responsive at this point. The notification door, and again, let me start with this. These mock-ups that we have here are not necessarily high fidelity. They're conceptual mock-ups that we were used to do our development. So this is showing the notification door. We're going to have a bell icon in the top of the masthead or the application banner. That icon will change when notifications have come in. We can use that in combination with an inline notification like we have already done in ManageIQ, or with a toast notification that comes in from the top right-hand side. But it's an easy way to access what's gone on. The thing that we're doing specifically for ManageIQ, what we're trying to design, is having two different trays. One is a task tray and one is an event tray. When I've spoken with customers, very often what I've heard is that when people start off a task in ManageIQ, they don't necessarily know if it's actually started. If they push the button, sometimes they don't get confirmation that the task has started. And in addition to that, they don't necessarily know where they are at the point of its execution. So am I 25% done? Am I 75% done? So this concept is trying to, from a UI perspective, get that into the user, for the user, and we're going to also have to work with Dan and his team as far as how we support that in the back ends. Okay, the next thing is going to be the service designer demo. I'm going to talk a little bit about a new role that we're going to have in the self-service UI. It's for the service designer. Currently, in 4.1, a lot of this functionality that I'm going to show you in the demo is actually, I'm sorry, in in the current release that was just released, sorry, it's the functionality is there. It's only front end. There's no back end is working with dummy data, but it's also hidden. The blueprints tab is hidden in Harpreet. If somebody asks, you're going to have to explain how to unhide it. So the thought is that we are, I'm going to actually show you, bring the demo up. Okay, so this functionality is the same functionality that's in the current UI, right? But what we've done is we've added a Blueprints tab to the self-service UI. When you come into the Blueprints tab, you see all of the blueprints that currently exist. A lot of these components that we're showing here are things that Eric and Dan and Harpreet have talked about the last couple of days. It's a list view that shows the name of the blueprint, the last time it was modified, the number of items that are in it, its visibility, whether it's public, private, or tenant specific, as well as the catalog it might be published to. We have the ability to filter by any of the fields that are inside that view. So for instance, I'm showing here the visibility is private and it gets, the filter criteria are set. You can either get rid of a single filter or clear all the filters at one time. You can also sort by ascending or descending on either any of the values that are inside that view. The next thing we're going to do is show when you go in to create a blueprint, we have the drag and drop capability. You have the ability to add an item, and when you add an item, you're going to see types of objects or service items that can be brought onto the blueprint. You can see here all the places that we think we're going to go in the future, right? So Kubernetes, OSC, some of these things currently already exist, but there's other areas here that are shown like middleware and storage that aren't currently in the service design functionality that's in the traditional UI. But we're thinking of forward-looking ways to bring this in. A bundle is something that has multiple service items already in it. In order to drag something onto or place something onto the canvas, you can either select the item and it will get placed there automatically, or you can drag like we're showing here. This UI right now only supports the ability to pull down a bundle. So you can't create a new service item yet, because when we create a new service item, we're going to be introducing the mechanism of using the wizard to step through the panels that are associated in the current UI. We have the ability to multi-select and remove items from the canvas. You can rearrange by dragging individual items or doing a multi-select with a window. We also have the ability to do duplication. Right now, in the current implementation, when we do a duplication, all it's doing is appending a number at the end of the name. Eventually, what we're going to do is when you do a duplicate of an item, it's going to bring you through the wizard so that you can change the values associated with that service item itself. You have the ability to rename things at the top. We also have the ability to save, so we just created that blueprint. We come back into the blueprints area, we see it. We can do a single select and delete. We have a delete confirmation dialog that shows to make sure that you want to delete it beforehand. And in this final step, I'm going to create a new blueprint that has GCE as well as Ansible. And I'm just going to go up there and save that item. Look at the blueprint details as well. I'm sorry, save it, go back to the blueprints and show that I can edit it. So I'm going to go back in. You can either rename from the top area or you can hit the blueprints button and it shows the way that you would change the name, as well as if I want to change the visibility and set the catalog that it gets published into. It also, you can create you can specify which dialog you would like shown when that service would be ordered. When you save that, we go back into the blueprint area, and on the right-hand side, there's a drop-down menu that says Publish. Again, it brings up that same Publish dialog. You have the opportunity to change the visibility as well as the catalog that you would be publishing that service into. And once you've published it, you go into the service catalog area, and there's my new service. Just showing here again how the filtering capability works. And so it's pretty easy. The interaction's very simple. It's drag and drop, canvas-based. So we really think that that's going to be a huge improvement from usability perspective. I'm not sure. Are you using Chrome? No. Sorry. I have 2 more slides. Yeah, sorry. There we go. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the futures. Go back a little bit more. I think one more. Yeah. So what I just showed was view blueprints, creating a service bundle, the ability to save and publish a blueprint, canvas item CRUD, and the ability to delete a blueprint. Things that we're currently working right now, as our people are back in Westford, are being able to create a service item through the wizard, as well as being able to edit the service item. Again, shameless plug on patternfly, as well as my t-shirt, where you're going to be using the new patternfly wizard component. And actually, the hope is also to do that throughout, as I mentioned earlier, throughout self-service UI. Setting and editing the provision and action order, we're going to do that with a drag and drop. So when you saw us do, in the demo, when you saw I select the blueprint details, we're going to add 2 more tabs for provision and action order. It will show by default all the items that are in your blueprint. You can drag and drop those to change the order. And for action order, by default, it will be the same as the provision order. If not, if you uncheck the box, then you can change the order itself. And another set of upcoming features that I would say are further down the line are blueprint versioning. So if you have a blueprint, you create a service and publish it to the service catalog, and then for some reason that you want to edit that, what we're talking about is having versioning of both the blueprint as well as for that service. And hopefully, then this is a picture like of the dashboard that would say, hey, for the end user, you have 4 updates available. So 4 of the services that you're currently working on have updates available. Of course, that not only is that front-end work, but it's also back-end work, so it's a lot of things that we're going to be talking about. And also cost per item, canvas cost, so anybody who had talked, was here yesterday with Sergio's presentation, we're going to be rolling all that chargeback and cost information in with the service catalog. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Okay, so now I would like to show you my work in last couple of weeks, and that's a dialog editor in self-service UI. So here you can see self-service UI, and the first thing that has changed is the new button in navigation menu. It's My Dialogues that takes you to the list view with the dialogues, as you can see. It's basically the same list as with as for the My Request or My Services. So now I'm going to select one of the dialogues, the Azure single one, and that will take me to the detail of the dialogue, where you can see some basic element information, basic informations, and preview of the dialogue that is used in while you provision the service. So now I'm going to edit it by selecting the button Edit Dialog, and it takes me to the dialog editor. And you can see this is how it looks like. It uses drag and drop approach, so you can drag your boxes around. You can also create new tabs and modify your tabs, or arrange the elements inside of the box as you wish. Of course, you can also modify the labels for every component by selecting the pen button. And now I think I'm going to show how you can add new elements to the dialog. So by the button Create Box, I'm going to add a new box. And here I'm going to add, for example, right now, new text box. And again, by the arrow button, you can fill some basic, some element information. And also you can choose whether the element is dynamic or not. The dynamic options, it just changes the fields for every component. So for example, for text area, you can modify the default value. And for checkbox, you can select if the checkbox is checked or not. You will see that later. Yeah, so now I have changed the dynamic option. You can see the fields has changed, and now I took it back, and you can again see you get back the default values. So now I have added the radio button, and again just filling some element information, and you will see that in the options tab you got different fields for radio buttons, as was for example for text area. So here you are. I'm just filling some entries for the radio buttons and default value. And there is a new radio button right there. So now I'm going to add a checkbox and show how I was trying to modify the value of a checkbox right in the preview of the dialog. So again, just filling some element information. And now I'm going to change the default value to on. And I was trying to give this option to change the default value also in the preview. So you can see I have unchecked the button, and it's also unchecked in the modal. Okay, so now there will be just example that you can create, of course, but if you don't want to use any of the dialogues anymore, you can just delete them by the button that is right next to the edit button in the detail state of a dialog. So the red one will just remove the dialog. Yeah, so you can see, or you cannot see that it's not anymore there. And yeah, that's it from my demo.
Thanks, Roman. Roman, by the way, was an intern, and he did this as his thesis project for school, and it's going to go in the product, so pretty cool. All right, so any questions for us? I don't know how much time we got. We don't have a monitor in here, do we? 2 minutes? Minus 2 minutes? Okay. Oh, we got to get a... I got to run my own mic. There's no one here. Oh, there you are. No, you got too much stuff. It's only going to be one question anyways.
So I really like opening the UI every now and then and seeing a bunch of improvements. So thank you guys for that. One thing that bothers me is I never know what's going to happen when I press the back button. Do you guys have... Any ideas on that?
Yeah, we don't support the back button. No, it is actually it's something that is really part of moving to the Angular forms will actually alleviate this whole problem because we're keeping all of the session data with the edit information that you've been working on in the session. So when you go back, the server thinks you're still on the edit screen, the browser doesn't, and so now we're out of whack, and that's what caused the whole problem. That's the whole reason we followed the whole Rails RJS way, and we took it hook, line, and sinker, and now we're backing our way out of it. So it'll improve, yeah. Anybody else? Okay. Oh, you sure?
Hey, I gotta feel like I'm doing something.
Hi. So I have a question about the service designer. From what you showed in the demo, there's no associations. So if, for example, I need to create some networking for the service to work, or if I want a template to be applied on a specific host or something like that, there's no way to do that. Is there any plans for that, to create associations, also the relationship between the objects?
All right. Oh, well, okay. Actually, that is a future. Okay, we have to walk before we can crawl, before we can run. You know, or crawl before we can walk, before we can run. Yeah, you want us to run. So, but yeah, no. First of all, we don't have those components yet. So we're just now introducing network and storage. So we want to be able to hook not only network and storage, but also configuration management, things like Ansible and stuff. Wire them together in the service designer. So that is a future. And good thinking. And when it comes up, I'll remember. Let me give me your GitHub name, and we can have you work on it for us. Anybody else? Last question. I've been told.
So as part of the vision, is there a thought that maybe you do something like what Spinnaker does, which allows you to kind of modify blueprints from one provider to another? So maybe take a blueprint that one writes on Azure and convert it to, say, to AWS. If you're familiar with Spinnaker, that's the Netflix OSS project that allows for multi-cloud conversions. And this may not be an immediate thing, but I just want to ask from a vision point of view.
So there's some thought about having resourceless services so that you could select the provider. Either have the end user select it based on performance or cost or something like that. So is that in line with what you're thinking? Okay. Okay, yeah, so we have been talking about that for the last month or so.
You could also use versioning as well, before we get to that point where, this version has it running on, in one cloud and the version 2 moves it over, and then users will be notified, hey, there's a new version, and when they upgrade, they'll move over, so things like that. Yeah. All right, so that's all the questions. That's it, thanks.